What's up, gang? It's Raj, and I'm here with my latest acquisition for the studio, which is this Glarry brand 5-string GJazz is what they call it. Obviously, it's a jazz style body. And the big thing for me is this was $129.99. For some reason, the last few weeks, I've had 3 calls for basically low C's and D's. And so my only real recourse is to tune down, which I did on the Harley Benton. And it worked, but there's obviously a lot of problems with that. It's not really the perfect thing to do for reasons of tension and note clarity and all that good stuff. So I figured for $129, if I've gotten 3 calls in 3 weeks, I may as well bite the bullet and get something. And this is what I decided on after reading the specs and watching a few reviews. And so far, I am not disappointed with the investment. The finish, the paint job, the fit of everything on the bass, and even the grain is pretty darn good. A lot better than you maybe expect it to be for $129. There's some obvious imperfections in the grain. I guess imperfections is a weird word to use for a wood grain, but things that maybe wouldn't get out of Fender USA, I guess, as a stock. But this is a basswood body. That's what they're saying. And it's probably 3-piece. I think it's 3-piece. That's what I can count. But again, that's some pretty grain. I wasn't hoping for that or expecting that, but there it is. They also have, this is, I guess, the yellow color. I want to see what they call it. Let's see. Yeah, they just call it yellow. There's also sunburst in this and what they call burley wood, which looks to me to be just a natural finish. I gave this guitar maybe, let's say, 15 minutes of setup. I straightened the truss rod a hair. It comes with both of the Allen wrenches you need to do the truss rod and the bridge. It comes with a cable that will never be used. And it comes with a strap that likely will never be used either. But it's nice of them to send it. And a pick, if you want to do some picking on your bass, which a lot of people do. Again, not really a bass player. I won't be blowing your mind with my tasty licks, but I just wanted to demonstrate the basic sound of this. Let me show you what I'm running this through. I'm going into a UA system, into an Apollo, going to the Ampeg flip top in the Apollo. Everything's at 12 o'clock. I'm under the 64 channel. And I'm just going to play some open strings, starting with a B. So if you're not on headphones, you're doing it wrong. So I'm not really trying to create a sample library, so I'm not going to let the sustain die out naturally on all those. But I'm doing that for 2 reasons. One, because the sustain is great. I've got a little tiny bit of compression, a DBX setting. Let me actually show you that if I can real quick here, because full disclosure and all that's important. Let's see. Yeah, so, it's a hair. It's a couple of dB when I am being relatively aggressive at most. So not much, and a little bit of output gain. So, mostly for tone. The other reason I wanted to do that is because the only thing when I gave this guitar a once over that kind of concerned me was the nut. And I'll put up a few shots of this nut compared to the P-Bass and the Harley Benton. First of all, I haven't taken the strings off and tried to remove the nut. I haven't done much of anything aside from, like I said, 15 minutes of setup and tuning up and intonating the instrument. It looks funky. It still looks funky. It still freaks me out a little bit to look at this thing. But the proof is in the tone, and that's pretty stable. And that sustain is pretty significant. And the action is very decent. I'm not going to give you any specs on my action. Everyone's different, but I like a medium action. I'm not going to play a full gig on this, so I'm not looking for the lowest action I can possibly get. I'm looking for it to be intonated and for there to be relatively buzz free and all that kind of good stuff, so I can play it on recordings for the most part. But I don't want it to kill me, so it's I would call it a right in the middle. All the way up the fretboard, it's clear. So I won't bore you with all the other strings, but it's the same way. There are no buzzes. I have to get pretty aggressive and be pretty sloppy with my my left hand in order to get a buzz out of the thing. Any decent technique, I think, and you'd have a pretty solid sound. So, what else can I say? They're specs. You can see those anywhere. It's going to be relatively cheap. It's not going to be in any kind of name brand. The hardware is, pull it right off. There it is. I'm guessing the pots are dime sized. I'm not going to take the pick guard off, probably ever. I won't swap out the pickups. They sound like I need them to sound to put down a decent 5-string track if I need 5-string. I will say, and I don't know if you'll be able to hear this. Let's see. Of course not. In this moment, they're perfectly quiet, these pickups. Yesterday I noticed when I first plugged in that I was getting a little noise when I just had one pick up all the way up. I've also got the tone is probably roll off 50% right now. I'll bring it all the way up. Probably a little more noticeable on the high end. That's full, and this is all the way off. Tone is rolled all the way down. Still a pretty cool tone in my opinion. So a lot of play in the very, very last bit of turn, and there's a little noise in that pot as well. I haven't really tried to fix that yet because, again, it's probably not going to bother me given what I do. And as a matter of fact, after a few turns, it's kind of gone. So take that for what you will. And it's a very clear tone. A little bit of fret buzz there because I'm not a bass player. And I just needed to fret that note better. Yeah, so overall, I'm impressed with what they're able to deliver for that amount of money. I will say, if I was going to gig with it, I have the concern that it's quite neck heavy. So it looks balanced when I do this, and I don't own another 5-string, so I can't speak to a top of the line instrument and whether or not you're going to have a neck dive with those. But it's definitely quite neck heavy. If you do have it on a strap, it's going to neck dive pretty good on you. It won't aim right for the ground, but it's not gonna stay put in playing position. You're definitely gonna have to give it a little counter weight with your arm. Another big thing that I was looking for specifically for me, may not matter to anybody else, but I play a lot with muted thumb. And so what I noticed on these tunes that I was kind of called to do with 5-string that I had to use the 4-string for is that when those notes get floppy on an E string, you try to tune down to even C. And so pretty steady. Its intonation is pocket. It's right there, right where you want it to be. So I don't really have any complaints aside from the nut looking super funky. And if I was to take all the string tension off, I'm gonna guess I could get that to play a little bit. And again, I don't. If that's the big issue with it, and I have to replace that even with a bone nut and spend a couple bucks on a bone nut, I will. But given all that, I'm not going to. I guess the neck is. I guess I would call it chunky. I don't know. It depends on what you're coming from. It is no more chunky than my P from the 1970s, late 70s P bass, and just kind of grabbing it quickly. It doesn't really seem any more chunky than the Harley Benton, and the only reason I mentioned the chunk of the neck is because a couple other reviewers have mentioned that, but I guess maybe if they're coming from a different brand that's got a thinner neck, a more modern neck, maybe it feels that way. It's a matte finish. It almost feels unfinished, to be honest with you, but I don't think they would do that, so I'm guessing it's a thin-ish poly. But it's satin, and it's really nice to play. No catches. The frets are dressed really nicely. No sprouts. They're actually wow, yeah. I hadn't even looked. I haven't considered them until this moment. And yeah, they're dressed very nicely. There are no sprouts. There are no funky frets or no high frets in my particular instance. And the ends are dressed really nicely. There's no binding on the fretboard, but maybe there is. It doesn't say that it's bound. I'll show you a close-up of this. But there are some that I can see the ends of the actual fret, but most of them I cannot see where it's in. I don't know. I don't know what to call that, but they play great. They have not been a factor at all. I haven't thought once about the fret height, if they're high frets. I haven't thought at all about it. I didn't have to lower the action then raise it back up to compensate for high frets. I lowered it to where I like it, and I'm done. So seeing as how I would spend twice as much on a setup at a pro shop than I did on this instrument, I'm going to call that a win. I dig it. I think it's a contender. I don't want to say it's the one for you. The Harley Benton models are very affordable, and I enjoy those as well. but I think I might have to give the edge overall in playability, which in the end I guess is the most important thing, to this. If I was to take the fifth string out of the comparison chart, I did have a couple of quality control issues with the Harley Benton. First of all, they took care of it very promptly, but there's just something about this bass, and I don't know if I can put my finger on it right now. I have my finger on it, but yeah, that I dig. It's cheap, you know. I mean, it's definitely gonna the cheaper components. You have to know that going in. You're not gonna be terribly surprised by what the pickups look like, what the hardware looks like, what the tuners look like. They're cheap. They're budget brand, but they all work. Everything works as it should. Everything so far. So I'll come back, in 4 months and let you know if it's still working, because that's a good indication. But again, for a studio, if you're in a situation like mine where you just need an instrument to cover a certain duty, then yeah, it's a contender for sure. That's it. Happy playing, y'all.